Secret friends, unite!
Welcome to the Secret Friends Unite podcast, episode 382. It may stand for something, but I don't know. But this is your Geek to the Guide side.
Yeah,
Guide
you got it. And you were worried about screwing up in the intro. Oh
no,
my God. It's not happening.
This is your guide to the geek side, and I am one of your hosts, Todd Oxtra, joined by Charlie Carden.
Summertime, time for sugar-free popsicles. What's going on, everybody? Sunday. We're in between heat waves here in the Midwest, which is great. A nice low, but yeah, no, things are good. Todd, I know you're out there doing some yard work today, running around doing all that new homeowner stuff, so that's pretty sweet. Pleasant Valley Sunday.
Yeah, getting the house to the way it's supposed to be, it takes a lot of time. We are getting there, though. The office is kind of set up, and most likely I will move away from my office to a different setting for podcasting, because I don't like my office to also be the place I enjoy my geeky stuff. I'd like to have a little separation of church and state. So that is probably going to come. It'll happen in the, call it the man cave, call it the bat cave, call it whichever will. Our basement will have a door going down to it. So actually I can close that and have privacy too. So looking forward to that probably in the next couple of weeks.
Nice. And then you'll have a natural background kind of like mine, is that, or you haven't decided?
Not yet. Not sure how it's going to wrap up. That will be the man cave and things like that. And I will have stuff out. I just don't know if the orientation of where I'm recording versus where other things happen will be the best place for that. So
all things people will find out.
When I can do this, Charlie, I can change this. My background is far easier because I can just change it to any picture I want. So it requires no type of activity on anyone's side. And if you watch us on YouTube, please subscribe.
That's what I was trying to say.
And you can see our backgrounds, and you can see Charlie eating a popsicle.
You got it. Almost done.
Yes.
But somebody who's almost done for would be SpiderMan on the cover of this week's comic. This is Amazing SpiderMan number 382 from October of 1993. He's hooking up with the Hulk, who is wearing a non-ripped up pair of pants, which are very tight, but he's got a big belt and crazy thighs. My God. And like I said, the thing that's so disruptive about this is that the Hulk is so big and so massive, he breaks the Amazing Spider-Man logo. Look at that stuff. That's terrible. Very disrespectful. I, of course, very fond of bringing up the fact that I've read every issue of Amazing Spider-Man. I know I read this one when it came out because it was when I was in high school. Could not tell you one panel of what happens in this issue. It's that forgettable.
Not surprising. It's also the unforgettable artist, Mark Bagley, who just his style is generic to a T. It's serviceable, and there you go.
I tell you, well, someday we'll get him on here as a guest, just so he can, just so you guys.
I will call him Mr. Serviceable. Yeah, no one will put him up on the. Reliable. Always on time. Yes, that man is like a machine. It's like you plug him in, watch him go, you unplug him. I think Marvel just employs him as a robot artist.
You reminded me very much with the word serviceable of the musical episode of The Simpsons where Homer says, why they have to screw up that perfectly serviceable wagon story with a bunch of singing.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely. It's you know what? I always say that. Why do you have to screw up a perfectly suitable cover by making it Mark Bagley? But I know.
Oh my God. I didn't tell you.
But there you go.
Add us over on Twitter if you like Mark Bagley. Add us at Secret Friends U. Anyway, while Todd's busy making enemies, I think it's probably a great idea for us to get on over to the corner of Hollywood and Vine. That's where we're going to find good old Madam Webb, our senior news correspondent for the Rumors and News with Madam Webb. So let's do it.
Now it's time for Madam Webb's Rumors and News. Take it away, boys.
Thank you, Madam Webb. My goodness, Madam Webb. Yes, the storage cube is gone. You have no home. But I have heard a family of beavers have let you into their den, and you're doing a pretty good job. You got those buck teeth, that tail extremity that you never cut off is paying off.
Oh my gosh, she's all flippers ago. Oh my goodness. Well, first off in the news, we do have confirmation that the good folks at Marvel Studios is returning to Hall H at San Diego Comic-Con, which is coming up golly, is that mid-July? I should know. I should know off the top of my head, but I just don't. Is it?
What?
Just July. When it actually happens?
Oh, it's always August.
Are you sure?
Well, it says, this one, it's going to be July. Sorry. We'll be attending Comic Con in July. Yes.
Exactly correct. Yeah, but I mean, just like everybody having taken a break from things during COVID and whatever it is, they've had an absence. They were gone in 2018. They came back in 2019. And then I don't know if they've been attending subsequently. But the great news is for the rest of us mere mortals who don't live on the West Coast or have the money to go to San Diego or have, the sheer luck, I'm sure, to actually purchase tickets, because I know that those are difficult to come by. We obviously get to watch a whole bunch of stuff on YouTube anyway, which is how we consume any of this stuff. Todd, what do you think they're going to show us that we aren't really aware of anyway? I mean, their slate is pretty well established. Do you think that there's a trailer? Well, we've got the Wakanda is the project they have for the fall. Do you think we'll see that?
They've got to show something, because I mean, Black Panther is their big fall movie. Right. There are so many questions about that movie. They've got to show something. And with it being, 5 months now, almost 4 months from November, when this happens, that's when a trailer would happen. And that's the perfect time to do it. So it makes total sense, because people are just so unclear of what's going to happen with that movie and how they'll pick up with all of those pieces that essentially are not in place.
Right. Yeah. I mean, when the Black Panther being a title or a character, much like Captain America has become with Sam Wilson picking up the mantle, Chadwick Boseman is no longer with us, obviously not playing the character. So what is that going to look like? And that's something that a trailer will help us illustrate. So also says here, Feige has gone on record to say that the next big saga of the MCU will be revealed in the coming months. So something about the X-Men, something about the Fantastic Four, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. I would put either one of them kind of at
Phase 5 is, I mean, there's a pretty filled out dance card for at least the next 2 years, I believe. Right. But beyond that, 2025, do we start talking about that? That's pretty far out. Things change. Yeah, who knows? I mean, but this is great news. I mean, this feels like we're back to reality in some ways. Cons, part of the excitement about cons in the last 10 years have been big presence by the big companies. When you have less of that, it just feels like every con kind of feels the same. It feels like, same vendors, same, B tier, C tier actors, wrestlers. Right. Every once in a while you get a good panel, things like that. But this makes it special again. And SDCC is, the godfather of panels. I went in 2010, absolutely had a great time. And I'm not sure there's any other type of con I would ever want to go to at that level. So, unless they made something specific to my tastes. I'm not a big Star Wars fan, as you said, and Star Trek or things like that.
Yeah, it's one of the 5 big, kind of diamond cons around the country. There's Emerald City in Seattle. There's, of course, New York Comic Con in New York City. There's Dragon Con down in Atlanta, which I have a bunch of friends going down there. That's around Labor Day. But yeah, nothing is more synonymous with the normals, as it were, as San Diego Comic Con. Yeah. It's the name. It's been around for 50 years, which I was having a conversation with someone who's not into the genre. She says, a coworker who said, I'm going to be out in San Diego in a couple of weeks, and I know that the Comic-Con's going on. And I said, that's show has been around for 50 years. It started in 71, 72. I mean, that's crazy. Back in those days, it was just a bunch of nerds digging through comic boxes in a room at a Holiday Inn somewhere. Look at it now. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. So this is great news. Can't wait for it to come back. And we'll see who joins them. DC's doing their own thing with their Fandome, which is a big online event. Maybe they will host Fandome at SDCC. We don't know. They haven't announced it either. So that would be cool if they made it like that meta. And to your point, Charlie, I hope they have all of the panels online. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they're delayed. Sometimes they don't share everything, which sucks. Because I think the Star Wars event, Celebrations, they had stuff that wasn't shown. Yeah.
Mandalorian Season 3, they had a whole sizzle reel. Yeah. We've not seen it, which sucks, but whatever. We'll see it eventually.
They should always release that. I mean, what's the point now in not showing that stuff like a month later?
Right. It's exactly correct. Now it's obnoxious. Plus for them, it releases, and you know what? Maybe that was part of their plan with Kenobi going on. Maybe they didn't want to dilute the focus, but
That's
now
true.
that it's over, let's have it, because we don't have anything for Andor, and that's another almost 2 months. So give us something, Disney. Come on.
Yeah, I'm sure they have nothing to show us. They said, nope, we're done. We've closed doors. We showed Obi-Wan. Everyone said it's cannot be topped. That's right, it can't be. So we're closing our doors. Good night.
My God, yes, it's all over. The House of the Mouse is shut down. All right, what do we have next?
Yes, so this will actually lead us into the topic in the Thunderdome, so stay tuned to that, folks. But we're talking spinoffs, and one of the spinoffs that was announced is apparently this weird thing with George R.R. Martin and Kit Harington is the fact that we're getting a Jon Snow spinoff. So essentially a sequel series. So it's going to be taking Jon Snow, when we last saw him at the end of Game of Thrones, going north. And this could be interesting because he could be exploring places unknown that we know nothing about, that hadn't been documented, aren't in the books. This is totally uncharted territory. Because, as we know, our favorite railroad man has not even finished his damn series. It's taken him like 10 years to finish the last book, and he hasn't finished it. So
get it together, dummy.
Yeah. So because he just likes to adapt things, be a producer, do all these things, and it's just like, dude, get to work. But oh well. But going back to this, apparently Kit Harington actually pitched this idea to George R.R. Martin. George said, that sounds like a great idea. I like money. This prints money.
This machine prints money.
Yeah, but apparently he met with some showrunners, some writers, and he kind of did everything and brought it to George. So this is very cool. And a lot of the actors from Game of Thrones are very excited about this as well, because guess what, Charlie? They probably want in the bandwagon too. And they want that good cheddar.
I want that money.
I can do a cameo. I can just show up and say, oh, I was just passing by.
Whoa, what am I doing here? Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, so very little information about the show is out there. We do know we're getting the House of the Dragon, which is coming up in August. Very excited about this. So, and there are several other Game of Thrones ideas out there, but nothing's really been approved. So, you know what? I'll believe it when I see it. If this next House of the Dragons is popular, does well, I imagine it will be go. We'll see it happen.
Good stuff. I think when does House of Dragons drop again?
August.
August is going to be
a date in August.
It's going to be a sizzle month on TV because the box office is kind of dead by then. I know just by tracking things on our summer movie wager, the only movie that's being released kind of note is the Money Train, and that got bumped.
Bullet Train.
Yeah, Bullet Train. What a Money Train.
Money Train. Wasn't that a movie with like
90s? Woody Harrelson, wasn't it Woody Harrelson and Wesley Snipes? So it was like White Man Can't Jump too.
I'm sure. Yeah, Rosie Perez probably showed up too.
Oh my God! First of all, I love that movie. Louis Sabong, my best friend from childhood, and I adored that film.
Money Train or White Man Can't Jump?
White Man Can't Jump.
Okay, I was like Money Train. I didn't know you were a big fan.
I feel like White Man Can't Jump maybe deserves a Patreon, a special Patreon segment when we start doing that. Oops, did I let the cat out of the bag?
Well, Charlie, don't you remember on the Oscars, the last Oscars, they actually like had all those people come up on stage. It's the 25th anniversary of White Man Can't Jump. I'm like, really? You're doing
serious? Are you serious? You watched the Oscars?
Well, that was one of the parts that was from it, and it was just like they brought all the actors on screen. I'm like, that's an odd movie to really like celebrate.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Oh well. Well. Enough about White Men Can't Jump. Let's talk about white men who like to hit people with bats.
Ouch. Exactly. Well, we're actually, and compared to the stuff that you see on this program, phenomenally tame. Though a bat did get destroyed on that show this week.
True, it did.
We're talking about The Boys, which is over on Amazon Prime. They're on episode 6 of 8. I didn't realize they were flying through them so fast. There's only 2 episodes left in the season, which is wild. I was like, well, holy cow. But anyway, Eric Kripke, who runs the show, is in talks with Jeffrey Dean Morgan, Negan himself, and Papa Winchester from your Supernatural show, which of course
absolutely
Jensen Ackles is the main character on the show. Who knows if he'll be around next season? I mean, I don't know how those things usually go. Talking about potentially bringing him on board, and also hopes to cast Jared Padalecki, so bringing them all back together Interesting. But yeah, I don't know. Again,
Yeah, what role could he play? I haven't read enough of the comics,
yeah,
so
you and I just read the first trade of The Boys, so I
Mhm.
don't know. I don't know a ton about it, but I mean, if The Boys ends up being anything like The Walking Dead, they're just going to kind of go their own way, as Fleetwood Mac would say, and end up kind of throwing us a big surprise. So that show has been totally nuts this season. We're going to talk about that in the Geek Easy, but oh my goodness, I love this dude. Anything that Jeffrey Dean Morgan is in, he chews scenery. He's been great as Negan. He's one of the few things, and again, The Walking Dead is still on. April loves it a hell of a lot more than I do. Though when we met, I got her into watching it, and I was a rabid fan at that point. But it just, as you and I have talked about, it diluted as it went. So now it's just kind of you just continue to water down.
It has an end though, at least finally, right?
Yes, as they split the final season into like 9 parts of 8 episodes each.
And we still have not heard crap about that Rick movie or spinoff.
Yeah, exactly. It's just hanging in the ether.
That's really where I stopped watching. Really, I did watch that one season or part of the season following it where they jumped forward 5 years.
Yeah, or more. Yeah. I can't quite remember.
Yeah.
It was a big jump because she actually Rick had gotten Michonne pregnant, and then when it showed up again, she had his kid. So yeah, but then little Judith was older and all this different stuff. So yeah, it was. I don't know, man. I don't know. I couldn't even tell you what's going on in the show. It's just more of there's another group and they're trying to.
There's always another
blah,
group.
Blah blah. Yeah, it's just what you have to look forward to in this country. It might not even take zombies, but we don't need to talk about that.
Yeah, well, that's cool. I'm glad he's in this. He's only 6 years older than Carl Urban. Maybe does Butcher have a brother? I don't know. We know he has a dad. We saw his dad in this, right. So we will see. I mean, there's probably a lot of characters they could pull from, even original characters. I mean, I don't know if they've made original characters for The Boys yet, but they obviously could.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. I mean, they have so many soups, all the weird ones. They have to have made some original ones. So.
Yes, they did, because we saw quite a few of them.
Oh my God,
a lot of them, unfortunately. Yes,
we'll talk about too much of them. Yes, absolutely will. All right, moving on. What's next?
Yeah, so Charlie, you picked this one. Apparently, the Moon Knight head writer said he scrapped Dane Whitman, a.k.a. Kit Harington, Black Knight, and Steve Rogers cameos in the series. And that would have been weird because Moon Knight, we talked about that because Moonlight largely avoided MCU. Moonlight, yes. Moonlighting. Yes, they avoided all MCU, just like Moonlighting did. Yeah, I mean, who knew?
I know. I didn't know.
We never talked about Spider-Man.
I didn't know if Sybil Shepherd was actually maybe Aunt May's third cousin. I have no idea.
Exactly. She could have been the power. She could have been the Power Princess.
Squadron Supreme. That's a deep cut, folks. But that's a different Earth up there with Dr. Spectrum. And,
well, maybe Moonlighting was part of the Marvel Earth 2222. I don't know, whatever they're from.
Right. 22, 27, 23 Skidoo.
Yeah. So, but going back to this, but apparently, because they are trying to connect a lot of the Marvel Knights run, which was a lot of the darker characters. Moon Knight was part of that, and eventually they thought they could have had. He goes, "What happens if we try to get Chris Evans back as old Captain America? You sit there and play with that what if game among our writers. The only two that we seriously discussed were Dane Whitman from Eternals, of course, because Stephen Grant was going to be working at the same museum, but there was never any logical reason for him to be in the show." As a Marvel fan, I would be frustrated if Dane showed up for another cameo and didn't progress his story or give us any teasers for the Black Knight.
Right.
Which makes sense. Yeah.
No, I agree. So, it's all well and good. Moon Knight hangs on to its mystique. You don't necessarily know where he's coming back or what that's going to look like. And I think that that's totally cool. Keep it mysterious. He's a mysterious character. You didn't need Nick Fury showing up at the end and saying, "You're part of the West Coast Avengers initiative. So we're going to hook you up with Hawkeye and Mockingbird. And we're going to bring Linda Cardellini out of retirement because she's the actual Mockingbird or whatever." It's just, you just don't need to. It's good to see, Phase 4 is kind of, with Marvel in general, I've certainly felt like it didn't really have anything that was super breakout. So a lot of it was rebuilding. It was the rebound boyfriend or girlfriend, if you prefer. You know what I mean? It's your you ended your relationship with the Infinity Saga. You dated around a little bit in Phase 4, and then you get to Phase 5, and maybe this is the person of your dreams in Phase 5 with the Fantastic Four. There we go. I solved it.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that because you can only make the Avengers once. You can have other, and Charlie, you know this in the comics, there's always new lineups of Avengers, but they're never, it's kind of a surprise, and no one ever falls in love with a specific team. But yeah, you only get that once, so they've got to find something else that they're building to. It seems like with the MCU has to do it. They have to build to something. If not, then people feel like, oh, it's just another one coming in. It's not really going to do anything. So I would be curious, Charlie, maybe if Marvel took a new page and said, we're not going to tell you everything that's coming for the next 3 years, because that takes away a lot of the mystery. And maybe we just play it in the back pocket. We only share what's coming in the next 6 months, because that way you don't know, and everything will be a surprise. I don't know.
I mean, the simple fact of the matter is that they have very little to lose by doing exactly that. Nobody is not going to go see Marvel films at the box office until the genre itself, just like the Westerns in the 1950s, when it just finally dies off, because it will. Everything dies. Everything that goes up is going to come down, right?
Cyclical, right? I mean, there's highs and lows. Yeah. Yeah,
exactly. So, big sci-fi and big this thing and that thing, gross out comedies are going to come and go as a genre. But this, I think for the time period that they're in, you're right. They have very little to risk. If they're revealing that, this movie's going to come out 3 years from now, who gives a shit? It's not going to make somebody like, oh my God, now I'm bouncing off the walls. I'm so excited. No, it's really not going to make much of a difference, I think, in the amount of people who are engaged with Marvel and have been since 2008, or certainly since 2012, when the Avengers, the film, made the big splash and really broke the MCU. I mean, I even remember that summer I went to a training in Wisconsin for the company that I was working for, and there was a hip young lady who couldn't stop talking about how much she loved the Avengers movie. And I'm like, I bet you never picked up a comic book in your life, but you saw that movie and it clicked with you. And, like I said, that's going on now 10 years that's gone by, a total of, 14 years for the universe, as it were. So it will continue on. Phase 4 has been, I wouldn't even say it's really disappointing, but it's a lull while they regroup, and that's happened. And now they're going to move on to something
lull
else.
Like an LOL.
Yes. I lulled myself out.
And this should blow you away, Charlie. I'm just looking here at Phase 4. I will just announce everything in Phase 4, and this is over a period of January 2021 to Doctor Strange, which we have Thor coming up, WandaVision, Falcon and Winter Soldier, Loki, Black Widow, Shang-Chi, What If, Eternals, Hawkeye, Spider-Man No Way Home, Moon Knight, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, and we're getting Thor. That is a crap ton of Marvel. I mean, that really is.
In 18 months. 18 months. That's a lot of stuff.
I mean, and after a while, you just say, we don't want to say fatigue, but you start to say it's not blowing your socks off anymore, because you're like, because there's another one coming. And all this
but at least it's diversification in what they're doing. And by failing to diversify, and even Star Wars has done it. Star Trek has done it. Different shows for different audiences, different formats, TV, longer, animated, episodic, story arcs, so on and so forth. Yes, diversity, because different people are going to, a kids program like Star Trek Prodigy, or the Jedi Tales that's coming out for Star Wars. You've got to diversify, because for Star Wars in particular, you've got people who are our age bracket, and then you've got your next generation that's being raised by people from our age bracket. You know what I mean? Who are going to love it, like it, or lump it, but only really if there's something that's in it for them. Not just like, oh, my dad loves Star Wars from 1983 with the Ewok bears or whatever. It's, exactly. Which is you, by the way.
Yes. And it's going to be interesting, because it's going to be okay not to watch something in the Marvel, the cinematic. Right. Our friend John, he said he's not really excited about a lot of this stuff. It's just every once in a while. Right. He said it feels like it's not building to anywhere. He's absolutely right. Nothing. It feels like nothing. We don't know what it's building to. We thought it was building to a multiverse thing. As of right now, we had the multiverse, and it's like, kind of, I don't know what's happening.
It just really didn't. It was no fuzz. So well.
And then I think with Disney Plus, for a while they weren't overlapping anything, but now we had Obi-Wan, Miss Marvel, and then Doctor Strange, the Multiverse Madness on Disney Plus were all happening at the same time. And I'm like, you guys are kind of drowning, each other out because nothing gets its own place. You know, it doesn't even get like a week, which sometimes you want a week for something to get absorbed. So I think Miss Marvel, they said it was one of their lowest rated, which I get it. It's not for everybody. It's a character no one knows.
Exactly.
It's very teen centric, and we'll talk about that as well. So for a lot of people, it won't be. So I hope people don't view that as, well, it's bad. No, it's just not for everybody.
I think and again, you know, we're going a little long on this one in particular, but again, I think Ms. Marvel is demonstrating Marvel's ability to really diversify and talk to different audiences, which is amazing. But let's move on to the next story, if I can. IDW, the comic publisher, who is not Marvel and not DC, I know they're actually out there, has had the license for my beloved Star Trek since 2007.
Wow.
You know, Star Trek has had a weird history.
Was that with the JJ films? Is that when they got the license?
No. Let me give you this super encapsulated brief history. There was the Gold Key comics back in the 60s. Marvel snagged the license in the early 80s to do post Star Trek the Motion Picture comics. They lost it, switched over to DC post Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. They held it in 2 different volumes through about 1995. And then Marvel got it back when we were in college. I loved the stuff that they published back then. They lost it around 2001, and it was Wildstorm or somebody else that petered right out. Then IDW picked it up in 07.
And you said Malibu had Days Space Nine too, right?
Yeah, in the 90s they did. But the license as a whole went over to Wildstorm in like 01, 02, and then it was like a 5-year deal and it was gone. But IDW has had it now since 07, so 15 years. That is the longest single license holder. Just about. It's pretty close to what DC had. But at any rate, they are publishing their 400th Star Trek publication coming up in the next few months here. And they have, and Todd, if you look at this link, they published some great covers. The one that's the focus of this is that there's going to be a Lower Decks miniseries, and they did a Lower Decks version of all the characters in the Lower Decks style. So you've got Garrick and Sulu and Chief O'Brien and Worf, all as Lower Decks, which is awesome.
There's a weird cover that I don't even know. They look like little kids. It's very weird.
I mean, and there's Badgie with a broken bottle, which I love. But over on Code 47, we were talking just today. You'll hear that episode this Monday by the time you're listening to this. That we're really hoping we get an announcement in the next 2 weeks that Lower Decks will be returning after we get the last 2 episodes of Strange New Worlds, but we will find out about that. But this is super cool. So they're running a number of specials. They've got they published in this little article, which we can drop in the links below, the different kind of variant covers and fun stuff. But yeah, they're doing a Lower Decks miniseries, a 3-issue miniseries. Todd, I've talked about before, I love miniseries just based on the fact that comics get canceled after like 7 or 10 issues.
Good 3 issues is sometimes all you need.
Why not just make it a miniseries? This is these are slated for September. We're getting a Stargazer, Star Trek Picard miniseries, which looks like it's set around the time of season 2. Let it be better than season 2, fingers crossed. And then, of course, there's the ongoing Mirror War saga by Scott Tipton and his brother, whose name I'm drawing a blank on, but we had him on the show once, so I hope he's still listening. Super fun guy. Should definitely have it back when these are all over. But yeah, I love what IDW has done. These are the only comics that I actually purchase, because otherwise we have Marvel Unlimited, and that's how I'm reading those. So I do actually buy these. They go
to Comixology, but there's a delay, I assume, right?
Yeah, and you would still have to. I don't. But Comixology is so funny because they don't automatically. Not everything under the sun just becomes free as part of Comixology. It's willy-nilly. Yeah. So therefore you have to purchase it. And some of the IDW Star Trek stuff is obviously most of the older stuff, but you just don't know. So if you're dying to read it, you kind of have to do it this way.
Well, yeah, recency. If you want recency, you got to pay for it. Yeah.
Right. So IDW has done a great number of really cool standalone Star Trek properties since 07. So Comixology is the place to find them. A lot of them, if you, as Todd had mentioned, you have Comixology Unlimited, it is included to read them. So I would highly recommend it. But I love it. It's always great to see something that you love in another medium. The disadvantage between this and, let's say, Star Wars, because Star Wars is so tightly controlled by the Lucasfilm Continuity Group, is these are non-canonical stories, and canon is a hang-up for me, but it's not a hang-up for everybody, which is a good thing. So if you're just looking for something great, or even maybe something mediocre, I would say go check these out. But anyway, I'm kind of excited about the Lower Decks thing, because thanks to my esteemed partner, Katie Q, over on Code 47. I've done a total 180 about Lower Decks. I love it. I cannot wait to talk about it with her and Peter on our show. So I certainly hope that you're subscribed and you're listening, because we'll be bringing it all to you.
Very, very good. And Charlie, is there a way to get all the old Star Trek comics you talked about? Is there any way digitally to get those? Like the DC stuff, the Malibu,
Not all of them. I do. It's funny because I own, and I bought it years back, and you might find it on a black market, but there is a CD-ROM, and I had to go out and purchase a external hard drive that had a CD reader on it that has every comic from 2001 going all the way back to 1966 on PDFs that you could read them page by page.
I will follow up with you if you want to find a way to get those on an iPad.
I would love to, and I you know what, I haven't really looked into it, but I do still have the disc. But that's the only way to get those Marvel ones. Anything other than
I have gone down the dark webs of finding comics that you can't find digitally anywhere. Yeah.
But I love that Marvel run. They did actually some fun stuff. But anyway,
very, very
so
good.
I look forward to this. Look forward in September.
Very, very good. Well, that is it for the news. So now we're going to head on over to our favorite geek establishment for some sudsy beverages and some geeky stuff we're dying to talk about. And that's the Geek Easy.
Talk nerdy to me. Talk nerdy to me.
We're sitting in the Geek Easy, drinks are poured, and we are ready to get our nerd on this week. Charlie, I am very curious about your take on this movie because I've heard so many divergent points, and I think it's because of the director of this film, because he does some interesting things with his editing, his takes, and musical choices.
Very true. Well, April and I went to go see Elvis by Baz Luhrmann last night, and it was a long movie, 2 hours and 40 minutes, which is like, whoa. But,
it was his whole life, right?
Well, it honestly was. Yeah. I mean, you didn't see him die in the toilet or anything, allegedly. But yeah, no, it was his whole life, but it started as a framing sequence. You saw him, in his 70s, performing in the Vegas casinos days. And then you cut back to how he got started. They kind of blew through the prime of his career. So like the 50s and the 60s, and you get to a point in the late 60s and into the 70s where you got a little bit more meat in the story. And I don't want to spoil it, not like there could be spoilers because it's a biopic. You want to find out about it, go to Wikipedia. But you had a lot of things going for you in this film. You had America's friggin' treasure, Tom Hanks, as Colonel Tom Parker, who I knew, Elvis's manager, who I knew absolutely nothing about. But apparently he was the con men to beat all con men. He was the snowman, which I've never heard the expression but I guess if you really think it through, to snow somebody, to put them on, to shine somebody on, to pull a fast one, makes sense. But the snowman, Colonel Tom Parker, which is not his real name, is a big part of the film as well, got his start. Did
he earn his rank in the Colonel Sanders army? There
is actually a Colonel Sanders joke made at his expense by Elvis on stage. It was funny. But no, nice. He got his start, and this is what I was thinking about when we were driving home. He got his start in the circus, the carnival, just like John Hammond in Jurassic Park. And look how that shit worked out. But no, I loved it. And Austin Butler was Elvis. People have been, he doesn't look like him. He's got the big puffy lips or whatever. He was perfect. Absolutely perfect.
I've heard great. I've heard great things about his performance.
His performance was great. I don't know if he sang, but I don't know if he sang any of the parts. So it sounded very much like it just simply could have been lifted. It could have been kind of the same thing that Rami Malek did. And of course, I'm reading notes on IMDb. Apparently he collaborated with Rami Malek personally because he really wanted to know what it felt like to portray an icon like that. Great film. Going to do about 30 million at the domestic box office this weekend, which is probably on par for something of that subject matter.
I think Bohemian Rhapsody was the biggest one lately, and it did like 90 million. They don't do huge.
And it's 90 million total in its opening weekend.
I think 90 million total.
Oh, okay, gotcha. So yeah, I could see that happening with this because if if it's in the theaters for 45 days, it could stack up to that. But I loved it. Theater was pretty full. Theater was actually probably 2/3 full, which I was impressed with. We saw it at like 6:30 last night, on a Saturday night. So yeah, I like it. I would recommend it. Who doesn't love Elvis?
I have loved Elvis. I mean, I like his less like early music. I like his older music because I just feel like there's more like he has he has a life learned. He has like in the ghetto music like that,
right?
And he did a lot of great covers too, and he made them his own.
It's like the Beatles. Like I am a Beatles devotee. I really do love the early music because it apes, rhythm and blues music, which I'm a huge fan of. Elvis does the same. But later, when the Beatles hit their halfway point, which is about 1966, so Revolver or Rubber Soul, and then leading on to Sgt. Pepper's in 1967, their music becomes so wildly experimental that it carved a path for every single piece of popular music you've heard since then. Yep. And Elvis plowed the same way with his being in movies and, starting the whole, performers in residence in
Vegas.
In Vegas. Yeah. I mean, he created all of those things.
He created people getting married at little white chapels, pink Cadillacs. I mean, he is an icon. I know people complain about him like, oh, he stole and appropriated. But you know what? Everybody does when it comes to music.
And they always will.
He opened the door for other musicians. Quite honestly, I think Little Richard became more because of Elvis than he would have without Elvis.
And featured in the film, B.B. King is a character in the film. I mean, it's great. Go see it. It definitely gets my highest recommendation.
And it's a Warner Brothers film, so it will be on HBO Max, I think, 45 days, which is good because I want to see it. I just don't know when I will get to see it.
Right. And I wouldn't say any enormous rush to see it in the theater.
But it might get spoiled. Like, did he eat fried chicken? Did he make the banana and peanut butter sandwich fried?
They do show him, shooting out TVs in his hotel room with the huge revolver.
Did they show him eating Nixon?
They did not show him meeting Nixon. He didn't eat Nixon. He did not meet. No, they did not show that.
Yes, that's not how he died. Elvis was a carnivore.
A cannibal, yes. He choked on a Nixon bone. But anyway, all right. Well, moving on. We have our regular programs that we're watching. Strange New Worlds had a couple of great episodes. They had
I was going to say, Charlie, so we're up to what now?
This is episode 8. And I think I talked about, I don't know if I talked much about episode 7. Todd, where are you? Because I don't want to get too deep.
I think I'm caught up. The last one I watched was the fantasy episode.
Yes, that was it. That was on,
I'm caught up.
Dr. Mabenga. We talked about that obviously on Code when we recorded earlier today, but fun episode, which I think had a real serious turn at the end. And it was interesting. If you've been watching the show, Dr. Mabenga, who is the chief medical officer, has a daughter that he has to keep stored in the transporter buffer because she's dying of this illness, and it's the only way to stave it off. And in this episode this week, it was kind of fun. We kind of had, trope of the week where we had the holodeck episode, but that was spawned by the mysterious creature in the nebula nearby. But at the end of it, it restored her to health, but it also, aged her to an adult and kind of took her away. And I likened that to myself, kind of a struggle I've been through in my own life. I have my son Parker, who passed away a couple of years ago, but he was in terrible pain the last couple of years of his life. So much like with what happened with this character, this character was freed and off to live a life without pain, which is how I tend to think about the Parker and, kind of life beyond. So that touched me where, Katie and Peter didn't necessarily have that experience. So they were kind of like, well, I don't know really how I felt about that. So that's the beauty of Star Wars.
Kind of a human reaction though, because you're child. It's like
I know.
It's like it's like losing your dog. I don't know. I mean, it's just like I felt his pain, and it did.
Yeah,
and you don't
exactly
even get a connection with losing someone like a spouse or
For me, more to the point, I'm not here to judge how anybody feels about whatever they see, but more to the point, one of the things I think Star Trek has always done very well is give us the human condition through the lens of sci-fi fantasy. Yeah. That is what it does 101, and I thought this episode did it really better than anything else.
Yeah, I was going to say, the only thing I thought was a little bit too campy. That was my point. I was like, they're really, really hamming it up, and it's not like that great. Like, I know he's your man, Charlie, but man, the captain, I thought it was horrible. I did not think it was good acting. I just thought it came off as really bad. Like, he didn't know how to do it very well. I think that his performance and a lot of the actor performance, I don't know if it was badly directed or whatever. I've just seen it just came off as like, wow, this is like bad, like off Broadway, trying to be funny and goofy.
off Broadway.
But I like the concept, and I was going to say
Right.
the previous episode we didn't talk about. The one I really enjoyed was the one episode where Spock and his betrothed switched bodies, and they kept talking about hijinks. That was a clever episode. I'm like,
Very
man,
clever.
they're just. This is a really good, like, first, shows with good first seasons. They are nailing it.
I will absolutely agree with what's going around is that in the new Trek era, the Paramount Plus era, this is the star. And the yin to the yang for me is Lower Decks because it's 100% different. It's totally self-referential and silly and enjoyable kind of by the masses, where this is not so heavy and it's not so bogged down in. But anyway, let's move on. One thing that was not bogged down in, was bogged down in something else, but still managed to discuss you at the end of it was this week's episode of The Boys Hero.
You can't even call it. I was going to say, can we even say the name of it? Because it's pretty gross.
I think Gasm, you slap, Orgasmo, the movie with the South Park guys. I guess you can throw Gasm at the end of anything and you pretty much know what it's about. But yeah, it
leaves a bad taste in your mouth.
Sorry. No. Strike that. Strike that.
Mother's milk found out.
Which also draws into it. But anyway, brief synopsis. In the last episode, our crew is over in Russia. They managed to finally rescue Soldier Boy from his tortured captivity by the Russians over 40 years. It's a Winter Soldier.
It's a Winter Soldier. Yeah.
He's not Steve Rogers, and he doesn't even have the personality of Bucky Barnes. He's a super dick. He's the previous generation of Homelander, who is our crazy villain, as we've been talking about. So anyway, we obviously know that. It was 2 episodes back that they rescued him, so he's been around.
Correct.
But now they've got him, and they said, you know what? Hey, we need you to take Homelander out, and they managed to draw Homelander. Because what Homelander's doing is he's systematically killing off his old crew because they all set him up to the Russians.
The name of the team.
Payback. Yeah, exactly. Which is, not so subtly, that's exactly what's going on. Mm-hmm. He's killing them off. And so he tracks down the brother and sister duo of TNT or
TNT. So they have a really bad, Wonder Twins. Except
definitely.
They still live with each other, but they hate each other.
Right, exactly. So, the way any adult siblings would if they had to live together.
Thankfully, none of them can turn into a liquid.
Oh, my God. Oh, yeah. This whole episode had to do with this superhero orgy called Herogasm, which apparently was invented in the 50s by Soldier Boy. But long story short, and trying to cut out any of the really gross stuff, there is an unbelievable throwdown in this between Butcher and Huey, who are, again, temporarily augmented with superpower.
V24, what is it, V24?
Yeah, V20-something. And then Homelander shows up and Soldier Boy, and they finally slug it out. They're equally matched. And with Butcher's help, they almost get to the point where they take Homelander on, but he takes off. But in the time in between, there was a detonation that ends up killing almost everybody at this Herogasm. But at the end of it, a very chilling video put live on Twitter by Starlight, where she reveals what's really going on, and then she says, "I'm January." I would say January Jones. Oh. She's not January Jones. She's Annie January, and I quit. Yeah.
January. No.
January. So yeah, this show is nuts. We're ramping up to the last 2 episodes. I can't even imagine. Just think about the finale of last season and how crazy that was. Yeah. So I know that we're going to get something super nuts. So yeah, this show is great. But yeah, they've taken the gore factor. If that is not your scene, if you can't handle it, the show's not for you. But I dig it because it's just very visceral. And
it's cartoonish too. It's not realistic at all. And that's where that's where I feel oh God, because ultimately if you watch the show and you didn't have any context, you're like, oh my God, this is the worst thing ever. But you watch it's no, it's very it's almost like Acme violence with the Wile E. Coyote but except it's humans. And even in the beginning of the episode, Charlie, you can tell this is Seth Rogen is one of the producers, and he talked about like, hey,
Oh,
this
yeah.
isn't real. We didn't kill anybody because we spent a lot of money on special effects, so this ain't real. So just chill out. But I did, and this episode brought back the whole reason of this whole thing was the fact that A-Train, who we kind of feel bad for right now, was the whole person that kicked off Huey on his path to kill everybody, because A-Train was a jerkazoid who killed people. And, that's what happened. And we forgot about that. And we got A-Train, who finally stood up for what he meant. He apologized. And when he was killing someone, I won't tell you who he killed, that was gross. And then I thought, when he unfortunately met his end, I thought he was going to explode. Like, that was what I was expecting. And they didn't. So I'm like, wait, they actually had some restraint.
Right. Well, don't count on it going on. Anyway, we're running a little short on time. Why don't we move on? What were you watching this week?
So Miss Marvel episode 3. This series is, every episode feels very different. Like, they're doing something different. We had a turn of event where, essentially where we thought she was going. We had this group called, this was an interesting one, because I'm like, wow, they brought in the clandestines. So you may not be familiar with clandestines, Charlie, but they were a hero group that was created by Adam. He was an artist. I can't remember what his name is. Adam, blanking on his name.
That's the only one I can think of.
No, he's a British artist, and he did Excalibur. I'm always blanking on his name. He's a good artist, but he created this super team called the Clandestines. It was tied to Excalibur, that mutant team, and the Clandestines were an alien team. And I'm like, and they made it a mini series. And they had I think it was Avengers versus Clandestines. This happened like the mid '90s. So you find out these people that absconded Kamala, not really did, they were being with her, were part of the Clandestines, which I'm like, wow, that's a deep cut. I never expected them to bring that in. But when it came to it, basically, essentially, these aliens convinced her that she's one of them and that her family is tied to it. Her grandmother, and her actually great grandmother was tied to it. And it's kind of weird. I mean, I don't know. It nails a lot of things right. And sometimes I just don't know if it wants to be really a teen show, but it has to be tied into all these other things. And sometimes it just feels a little weird, but I like it. I like the actors. So I don't know. It's just the Marvel trappings at times sometimes take it in places that make it feel awkward.
Right. You're right. The overarching way to be connected, which we didn't suffer with Moon Knight, which I appreciated.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a little bit of drawback. And again, I always said it last week. I do watch it, but it's not, because it's not so much me and me being the audience for it. I'm not super drilled into it, but I'm definitely watching it and I'm appreciating how good it is. And more to the point, how good it is for the people being represented to have that representation. I think that's super key, and it's something that is done extremely well, both by this and by Star Trek as well, which I think they're doing a really great job of. So yeah, I'm glad for people who are enjoying it, but for myself, I will still watch with interest. But I'm more fired up for She-Hulk because it's a character that I have a little bit more oomph with, and I enjoy the actress, and it's ties right back to Mark Ruffalo as the Hulk and stuff. So I'm a little more excited for that. And that drops in early August, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh yeah. It'll be after. It'll be like, there's a gap, I've noticed. Like this ends like mid-July, and there's nothing through the rest of July that's Marvel or Star Wars. So it's going to be pretty empty. But yeah, I mean, I really like the like I said, I like the show, like the actors, everything. And I feel like the Marvel stuff seems to be the point that's just not as good. So maybe that'll change when she comes in with the Marvels, which I think that'll be like, they've established her, she's got powers, and they can do something cooler. But this is great to give her background with their family. And there was an awesome Bollywood scene that was great with the dance and wedding. So they're doing a great job. And this is definitely going to be somebody's favorite MCU show, and that's perfect. So and then lastly, Charlie, I know we don't talk about games much, but I think this one you may really enjoy. There is a game called The Quarry, and it is essentially by this team that makes games. They're essentially like American Horror Story 84, where it's like there's a serial killer, and they're typically a bunch of teens, and they have to survive. But the fun part about playing a game like this is you make decisions that ultimately screw up, or you'll be like, the character's running and they'll give you like directions like, oh, you have to duck to not hit a vine. So you have to push down. And if you don't, you'll hit the vine and something will happen. And it's very fun and it's very realistic looking. Like, and on PS4, this is going to be on PS4. I think it's on PS4, so you could play it with April. But this is a game that you could play on the couch and just make decisions together and just have a good time. Like this one involves like Ted Raimi's in this movie. Lance Henriksen is in this game. And Justice Smith from the Pokemon movie is in this. So they've got actors and it's really cool. And it's like a teen romp. And I like it. It's very fun. It's very much more like an interactive horror show than it is a game. So I wouldn't like games. I think you might get a kick out of it. Until Dawn was great. Hayden Panettiere was in that. Romy Malik was in that. And that was a PS4 game. And I think it's like $5. You could play that as well. And it's fun. I really like them. So these are very much a team that makes these type of games that I think are great for like a Halloween spook fest, couch decision making with your friends. And hey, what do you want to do? Do you want to say you're persuasive? Are you saying you're angry? Which decision you want to make? And there's like and it'll remember if you made the decision or not. So very cool.
Remember. Interesting. Well, that wraps up. It is time to get the heck out of here. I think if we skip out on our bill one more time, they're going to toss us in the street. So maybe we ought to do that. But get your phone out. Get that Air Qantas app lined up to go to the land down under. That's right. Time for the Thunderdome. The mutants await. So let's go.
Welcome to another edition of Thunderdome!
Thank you, Tina. We're sitting in the Thunderdome where the mutants have been gathered for a topic or a game to be entertained. And this week, we're talking about spin-offs. Spin-offs, folks. If you aren't familiar with the term, it essentially means you have got an existing series, and then they take a character or something linked to one series and make another series. It was essentially a safe play, and I think it typically started in like the 50s, because you'd have like Dick Van Dyke that led to like the Mary Tyler Moore Show or something like that, or Happy Days that, led to the Mork from Work, or All in the Family led to the Jeffersons. So we saw those, and it became very much a staple. You're always like, oh, who could they spin that off? So that's what we're going to talk about, because we had Jon Snow coming and making his own series. So spinoffs aren't going away, and they're only going to continue, and they are a great way to cash in on fandom. And we'll see where we are. And we've got an article, and this is from Screen Rant, where they said basically they're taking 15 good and 15 bad. So we're going to break these down, Charlie. And if you think of any that we aren't mentioned here, folks, let us know. And if we think about any ones that we didn't have, we'll bring them up as well. But we're going to start off with number 30, because there's 15 good and bad. So number 30 would be, the bad one would be Joey from Friends.
Oh, I watched it too.
I love Friends, and I never watched Joey.
Me too. I fell for it wholeheartedly, and it was absolutely. I don't know how long it was on, a season, maybe less.
Yeah, probably. Lasted 2 seasons.
Yeah, it was absolutely packed with every wacky sitcom, whatever, because Joey moved out west and with his sister, and she was a single mom, and he had a really smart kid who was you see pictured here, and it was just foolish nothingness. It was rarely funny and just packed with super predictable jokes and no Friends vibe.
Typically with a spinoff, you take a character that's less developed, so then because you can add on to things and things like that. But in this case, Joey was a main character, and he was definitely not the most interesting one. But moving on, for something worth watching was Family Matters, which was I didn't even remember this, a Perfect Stranger spinoff.
I know. I feel like this certainly led to a longer shelf life, or certainly more popularity and notoriety than Perfect Strangers ever did. So I'd be curious to see a clip where, what is, Urkel wander into the frame, or do they meet, the dad because he was
this apparently says Jo Marie Payton, who is the wife of Carl, was an elevator operator in Chicago at the Chicago Chronicle. Perfect Strangers took place in Appleton, Wisconsin, so they must have traveled to Wisconsin to Chicago, because that's what you do when you live in Wisconsin, because there's nothing there.
I don't know how that all shakes out, but anyway, yes, very enjoyable sitcom that it spawned. I think, and I read somewhere
TGIF.
Yeah, that Urkel was a minor character that caught on fire, so it became a huge character. But very interesting. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
My.
28, Charlie, Bad, the Lone Gunman was a spinoff of the X-Files. I watched a little bit of it, and those were the characters of the conspiracy theory nuts.
Yep.
And apparently there was no conspiracy for their success.
No, and again, I've said it many times. When I was growing up, my mom worked at the local Fox station, so Fox was always on. And this was on when I was in college, but I don't know, does it say what year? But this would have been 94, 95, so definitely within that window when I would have come out, watch Fox, whatever. 13 episodes that's bad. What's weird is that 13 episodes is now a season, where 13 episodes back in the day was you got canceled during the middle of a season.
Yeah, it was an interesting, perspective. You take these three nuts, and you may be like, we could do something with them. And you found out they really didn't have much personality, and they were more like, they were good for cameos, and that was about it.
Absolutely. Well, it's real easy with number 27 to say that this should be number 1. Star Trek: The Next Generation, spinning off of the original Star Trek, 20 years after the cancellation of that program, or a couple of years shy. Was a great show. Again, the first couple seasons, meh. Hit its stride in the 3rd season, blasted through 7 seasons, launched a film franchise, launched 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 spinoffs that are still going on to this day. Or it was a continuation of a franchise that had been canceled 3 times in 3 years in the 1960s, managed to come back with the film series in the 1980s, which was successful, which led to this with a new cast set approximately 100 years after the original adventures. So good stuff.
It'll never last, Charlie. It'll never last.
And these idiots spell Picard with 2 C's. It's not Captain Picard. It's Captain Picard with 1 C. Idiots.
The second C is silent, Charlie. You know that.
I guess.
Yes. So I will just go the next 2 really quick. Law and Order, it's been around forever. They had several spinoffs. Law and Order Tribal Jury, never watched it. It looked bad. But we did watch Law and Order SVU, which was not a vehicle that would be going over a big train. But I did watch that show for many seasons because Christopher Maloney and Mariska Hargitay were awesome, and Ice-T was on that show. But yeah, that show is still going on. I don't know how it exists because it just ran out of credibility. But then we go to number 24, The Finder, which was a spinoff of Bones. I didn't think The Bones was a good show, and that got a spinoff, so that happened. But Charlie, next.
Did happen. I can't deny that it would happen. But next is Todd's favorite television franchise of all time. That's NCIS, spun off of Todd's.
Oh, yours too.
Todd's second favorite film franchise, which would be JAG, which I loved, but Todd likes to make fun of. So JAG was about the Judge Advocate General's office in the United States Navy. NCIS is a Naval Criminal Investigation Service. It was introduced in an episode of a latter season of JAG. And then that has launched one of the most indestructible franchises in the last 20 years. It's stronger than
I don't know how. It's horrible.
Stronger than the Chicago blank, like Chicago Hospital, Chicago Fire, Chicago. I make fun of April, even though she says I don't watch those shows. I said Chicago Department of Public Works, Chicago Fish and Wildlife, Chicago Parks and Rec. I don't know, whatever.
Chicago Refuge. Yes, refuse.
Exactly.
Yeah,
refuse. Yes, exactly.
We found something in the garbage. You want to check this out, Jimmy?
Yeah, for God's you, we got to call NCIS. Oh my God!
Ahead again? Yeah. Oh my God!
Oh my
Jimmy.
goodness!
Oh yes, yes.
But anyway,
NCIS. Yeah, NCIS. It's what your parents watch, and you shouldn't.
Yeah.
And that's what is on the TV when you visit. Oh well,
exactly.
we go from there, and I'm not sure why they say it's worth watching. Really, NCIS. Oh well, we're moving on to something I didn't even know was a spinoff, and that's Once Upon a Time in Wonderland, which is a spinoff of Once Upon a Time, which, you know what? I actually liked that show from the beginning, but it spun off and got crazy too.
Absolutely correct. Let's see here. I didn't even recognize. I'm going to kind of skip forward. Well, not really. Curb Your Enthusiasm was actually a spinoff of Seinfeld. I guess I didn't watch enough of it. Did we end up seeing?
It's not really. It's because it's Larry David. Larry David was George Costanza. It was his show, so not really. But we love that show, so we can move on.
Right. I'll tell you what. And this one I actually did watch. And even looking at this cast photo, I know a lot of these faces.
Is that Glenn Howerton?
That totally is Glenn Howerton. And the guy all the way at the other end is another actor that you see in absolutely everything. But that 80s show was not a spinoff of that 70s show. It simply had the same premise. Okay. And it was on.
Which is the Goldbergs.
Yeah, exactly. So it was on very brief. Yeah, again, 13 episodes, a half a season, which was a disgrace. But now it's normal because that's what people do. Now, that 70s show, which everybody loves, April and I just finished watching it recently, the whole thing all the way through, is getting a Netflix revival that takes place in the 90s, I think, later this summer. So that should be great. This, however, was trash.
Yes. Then we'll go on to, and I never saw it, so I didn't need to. Worth watching. Better Call Saul. It's a show I need to watch. It's ending. 6 seasons. I've heard it's almost even better than Breaking Bad. And the fact that Saul Goldberg is so good. Goodman is so good as like a cameo actor. So that's perfect. You know, you take a small character and build him in. This is the perfect way to do it. And I've heard it's so good. So that's a show I definitely need to watch now that it's ending. I have not been spoiled, and I definitely will watch it. So very excited for that.
One thing that is not so great, we probably ought to pick up the pace here, would be Cheers spinoff, The Tortellis. That would be Carla's ex-husband and his new wife and their 2 kids.
Casey Kasem's wife?
Yeah, exactly. This was not even on for half a season. Not great. But one thing that was a huge success that was spun off from Cheers was Frasier. Oh my God. Frasier, the character, was on television for 15 years, maybe longer. How long was it was 10 years after he was on Cheers that Frasier started. So if that ran for another 8 years, that was almost 20 years that he was on the air.
Absolutely. An ideal character you take, somebody who was kind of like a supporting character, wasn't fully fleshed out, and then when they did flesh him out, they gave him a brother and all this stuff, and it worked so good. It's one of my favorite shows. I actually like it better than Cheers. I know that's blasphemy, but I think the writing on Frasier is so biting, so good. I didn't like Woody, didn't like Coach, I didn't like Carla, I didn't like a lot of the characters on Cheers, and that was where it fell apart for me, but a lot of people loved it, so totally get it.
I get it. All right, we're going to skip forward to some of the actual
we're going to go to number 15, Charlie.
Yes.
Muppet Babies.
One of your favorites, I know.
Muppet Babies. It was so good because it was of a time where it was like a kid's show, but they did a lot of like parodies. And this was like a nanny was Barbara Billingsley was the mother of Leave It to Beaver. The Muppet Babies were introduced in Muppets Take Manhattan. People loved them, so cute. And then we get this animated series where they would make fun of like parody things, and they do Indiana Jones and Star Wars before that was even like allowed because Disney didn't own them. And the Muppets were owned by Disney at that time. So I just loved it. I thought it was so good. Yeah.
It's good stuff. Another bad spinoff briefly, the Brady Bunch. I didn't realize the Brady Bunch was only on for like 3 or 4 years from late 60s to very early 70s.
I thought forever because it was on every season, every sitcom. It was on syndication on every TV station. I watched it every day growing up.
10 years later, exactly, when you and I were first watching TV in the early 80s, that shit was on it, it would have been off the air for 10 years. But yeah, they made a string of terrible TV movies. We watched one of them, that was like a very Brady Christmas, around Christmas. We didn't make it through it. It was so bad. It was so bad.
They tried to make it like real because they had like divorces and things. Not very cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Worth watching. Batman Beyond, a spinoff of Batman the Animated Series. I've never seen it. I will say hands down.
It's very good. It's like a flipping the script on Batman, where you've got an aged Bruce Wayne who cannot fight crime anymore. He's essentially secluded, becomes just a recluse, and this Terry McGinnis, whose father is killed by crime, wants to take back the streets, but he doesn't know how to, and he ends up meeting up with Bruce Wayne. And Bruce Wayne becomes a mentor, like almost like an Alfred to him, makes him a suit, gives him technology, and it's really impressive. It's really well done, and they had one of the best movies. It was called The Return of the Joker, Charlie, where it was fantastic. It might be all on DCC, but it's such a great version. They've made some comics of it and everything like that, but people really want a live action Batman Beyond. I could definitely see it happen.
Absolutely. Bad Saved by the Bell, the college years.
Never watched it.
I'm sure. I think I probably saw a bit here and there. 100% total rehash. And again, I would imagine they're having more success with the adult version of it they're doing now, though I've not tuned into that either. But yeah, nothing at all spectacular. I'll skip number 11 because I never watched it at all.
Let's go to number 8, Charlie.
Oh, let me at least attest to number 10 because I did watch a little bit of this. The updated version of the Full House Kids as adults.
Never watched it.
Absolute dog shit. Hard pass. Number 8.
Bob
Go
Saget.
for it.
Bob Saget, you're making him cry in his grave. Oh, is that too soon?
I don't know how that works. Anyway, what's number 8? Tell me.
Number 8, Bad Buddies from Home Improvement. I didn't know this existed, but get this. This has got Dave Chappelle and Jim Brewer on it. This is a spinoff of Home Improvement. We played Dave and Jim, two friends looking to the tool man for love advice.
Hold on. I do know about this because Chappelle himself made a reference to it on his show in the early 2000s. But he said, a black guy and a white guy are friends. How incredible. But I had no idea it had any connection to Home Improvement. It must have been on for, again,
half a season.
Half a season is the
12 episodes.
Benchmark. Yeah, exactly. Number 7, Benson, which I love, was a spinoff of Soap. Which
I love Soap.
I watched it on Nick at Night when I was a teenager. I loved it.
Yeah, Soap was just this weird like spin-off of like a soap opera, but it was a comedy.
Right.
It was a half hour long, and it was hilarious, and it was weird. Had Billy Crystal debuted in that, Robert Guillaume, a lot of actors you know of that played, like Mona was in it as well. And it was just a weird, like odd, like airplane like show that I just watched as a kid because I didn't know any better, and it was goofy and fun. But yeah, Benson came out of Soap, and Benson was like the butler who then became like the house runner of a mayor or governor in which city was it?
Like chief of staff. Wasn't it in Washington D.C.? I don't remember.
It was a governor of some state, but yeah, it was a great show and had a lot of people that were on Star Trek.
Yeah, it had Rene Auberjonois and Ethan Phillips. That would be Odo and Neelix, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Another terrible spinoff that this one lasted a whole season is The Golden Palace, a spinoff of The Golden Girls, where did not have B. Arthur in it, but had the other 3 ladies in it, plus Don Cheadle, Cheech Marin, and the kid who I think he was Worf's son in TNG, Brian Bonsall. Isn't that him who was also on Family Ties? Yeah. Yes. But yes, it lasted one season. But yeah, the Golden Girls, the remaining ones decide to invest in a hotel. Dorothy is often married. They weren't in there, could not find an audience, and survived a whole season, which apparently, as we know, is rare. Yikes. Yeah, never saw it. I'm sure it exists somewhere. One thing that does have staying power is number 5, the Colbert Report, which is now turned into the Late Night with Stephen Colbert, which that's where I get my news from, particularly in this day and age. I love The Daily Show under Jon Stewart. I've not really embraced it under Trevor Noah. I don't know if you watch it.
It's okay. It's okay. There's some segments I'll watch like are on YouTube where it's like the guy talking about the MAGA people.
Yeah. That's the guy. What is that dude's name? I know. I love him. But anyway, I love Colbert. Colbert came on and played a satirical version of himself within the show. It went on for 10 years before
he was basically being Bill O'Reilly, right?
Yeah.
He was being the overindulgent, the Ron Burgundy, I am playing a role as a conservative, but lampooning conservatives. It was great.
Right, exactly. So he did that before he now sold out and joined network TV, and he has a late night show. So I didn't know anything about number 4. Top of the Heap is a spinoff of Married with Children with Matt LeBlanc.
Yes, it was just because it was just bad. I mean, and I remember that because Matt LeBlanc was supposed to be playing like a gigolo, and Joe Bologna, who was Dorothy's ex-husband in Golden Girls, I believe. I think I'm maybe crossing this all over, but yeah, it was basically it was Al's old friend Charlie Verducci, played by Joseph Bologna, was introduced, and they thought there might be something there, and they made a spin-off. Bad show. That's all I can say.
Oh my God.
But I mean, I didn't watch Son of Anarchy, so I can't really say Mayans MC if it was worth watching or not.
I'll jump over to number 2 because I did tune into this for a while out of curiosity, and even after the big jump, but it was The Conners, which is a spinoff of Roseanne. This came on 3 or 4 years ago with almost all of the original cast, and it fell right in the middle of Roseanne opening her mouth and revealing that she was a MAGA hat. She got fired, and they killed off her character, but decided to keep the show going. I think it's still on, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, but they kept it going with, John Goodman and Sarah Gilbert and kind of the rest of the gang. Definitely appeals to a segment, but it's dumb. And it didn't get any less dumb when they killed off Roseanne. I'm glad they did, because she obviously sounds like she's a nutcase, but whatever. And number one is a no-brainer.
Yeah, because I watched the Tracy Ullman show religiously. I love that show. It was on Fox.
True,
It was kind of like the sweetheart of Fox. And then they had these bumpers of this family, the Simpsons. Matt Groening created a comic called Life in Hell. I watched that. It was just like very sardonic, and it's like, but there was something about these shorts that someone at Fox said, you know what? There's something here. And they said, let's make an animated series, which animated TV shows didn't even really exist in the 80s. They were just non-existent. The Flintstones, I think, were the last one that actually did something of note. And they were just non-existent. And The Simpsons came on, and the rest is history.
Friggin' wildfire. 650 episodes, 32 years of constant production. And it is older than most of the people that you work with.
And I would say it's the main reason why people take animation more seriously. And it's not just goofy kids stuff where there's a sidekick animal and things like this, because they're doing satire, they're doing music, they're doing things that have stuck with the social construct. And let's be honest, I think if there's one show that has more sway, it's The Simpsons. The Simpsons have outlasted everything. They've influenced everything. I don't know, when we say all is said and done, The Simpsons might be the most important television series of all time.
I think that is, with hyperbole aside, 100% correct. Tell me another show that has had a bigger influence on anything. A show that in the last 32 years has had more influence on popular culture than The Simpsons.
There's a quote, Simpsons did it.
Yes, exactly. And
what
it's
else
true.
Can you say? What else can you say?
Can't even be touched. Well, this was fun, and this was a last minute inspiration. So, Todd, I will pay Todd a rare compliment. He is the idea man of this program. He did come up with this just today. This was fun. I liked it. So, but as always, if there's something that we missed, if you disagree with this list, if you disagree with what we said, Twitter is the way to let us know. @SecretFriendsU. That's me. We'll give our own tags in a second here, but we want to hear from you. So drop us a line. We'll even repeat it on the program.
Yes, and so next week we're actually going to be talking about a comic that inspired Thor, Love, and Thunder, and that is Thor, Thunder God. We're going to probably see if we can find a guest to talk about that comic with us. So if you know anybody who is big on Thor and wants to talk about that and then read the comic and share their thoughts, let us know, but we may have already filled the void in the meantime. But with that, you can follow me on Twitter @Toxtra, talking about video games, talking about goofy stuff, and hopefully fighting back against the crappy stuff that happens in the world and making sure people speak with their minds and vote. Register to vote, folks, because this midterm, if you don't like the crappy people in office now, it's only going to get worse if more crappy people get in office this fall. So do the right thing, vote.
We don't relish talking politics. We don't allow it on the group, but the simple fact of the matter is the only way to change things is to get those people gone. Make your voice heard. Had to have this conversation with my children 4 years ago with that election. And trust me, they voted the next time. So please get out and vote. That's it. That's your Secret Friends message for the week. Anyway, back to the show. I'm Charlie. Thank you for joining us. You can find me over on Twitter @the_C3. Spell it out. My wife April and I also run the West Michigan chapter of the Star Trek International Fan Club. That is the USS Grand Petoskey. You can find us at the website of the same name and across social media. I also try to fill up the Secret Friends Unite Facebook page with content when I get the opportunity. But yeah, drop us a line. We love that you're listening to us. Register to vote. November will be here in a minute. I'm going to tell you, as always, that sharing is caring and to keep on trucking.
Be the hero, not the villain.
In a truck.
Nanu, bitches.
This podcast is part of the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network. Visit secretfriendsunite.com for more great shows, articles, news, reviews, and more. Secret Friends Unite podcasts are available on Apple, Google, Spotify, and other podcast services around the world. If you'd like to be part of the conversation, you can join us on Facebook or our new Discord server, or follow @SecretFriendsU on Twitter. Please subscribe to Secret Friends Unite on YouTube and visit our merch store at tpublic.com. Just search Secret Friends Unite. Thanks for listening.